Hello, everybody, and welcome to Teachers in the Dungeon. It is a bright, sunshiny, when I was last out, it was bright and sunshiny, but welcome, Dan. Good to see you.
They let me out this morning, too, doing some forced labor in the yard.
Same. That's what happens after this.
Given today's topic, I was kind of looking over my shoulder as I was doing a little bit of pruning.
Yes, indeed. And we will get to that in just a minute. But if this is the first time you've joined us here in the dungeon, thanks for coming along. We are glad that you are here and joining us again this week. You can check us out and continue the conversation on social media, Facebook and Instagram, Teachers in the Dungeon, and on Twitter X, it is at Dungeon Teachers. And we've got that YouTube channel that you have been hammering away with. And if you love images and original images, AI original images, you got to watch at least one or two episodes because Dan's throwing them in there willy-nilly. Actually, not willy-nilly. They fit the conversation really well.
Try to.
So, and speaking of the YouTube channel, been getting some good conversation there. And so I wanted to look at a couple of our comments we had a few months ago, are what we've learned about combat in Dungeons and Dragons. Had some people join on there. This person says, from my experience, both as a player and a DM, the key is keeping it dynamic and challenging, but fair. The Gravely, a mountain encounter, is a perfect example of how to make dynamic combats. Adding timers with consequences could be a cool way to ramp up the dynamics. And they go on to share more information about that. So if you want to see that comment and a little bit more about it, check out our YouTube channel. Let me see. Someone else says creatures running away. I remember talking about how, just because you get in combat doesn't mean you want to fight until you die. And even creatures have intelligence.
Right.
So we talked about that. And this person says, yes, this is how I used to do things. Makes more sense than creature attacking and fighting to the death. I agree with that. Let me see. I had another episode that had some nice, had a nice comment. It is in our How to Ruin Your DM's Day. That one was fun to talk about. Clunkadunk says, I liked the DM appreciation bit. I know I liked the DM and they like to play, but to hear them say thanks would be something else. I don't know if most people know what goes into it unless they've done it themselves. Truer words couldn't be spoken. I think everybody should try to lead a game, even if it's just a one-shot with the intent that I'll never do this again, but I'm going to lead a one-shot just to experience it so that you can have that appreciation for the person that does lead a game for you.
And even a more gradual on-ramp to that would be the DM-less adventures from Limitless.
Yeah.
My friends Limitless, because everybody takes a turn, right? So you get just a taste of it.
Right.
Start with that and then maybe work up to a one-shot.
I like that. I'm glad I'm not king because that sounds like, I know our kids who have played the DM-less adventures really, really enjoyed doing it. We had some kids that would come and go from it because they were in a campaign, and so they'd use that if the campaign wasn't going. But then we had probably 4 or 5 kids that that's what they did on D&D Day, is they just took their characters over to DM-less adventures and played there.
Yeah.
So, you gave us a little foreshadowing of what today's topic is by working in the yard. So I'm going to pass it over to you because I love this about these episodes. You've always got a nice, clever introduction. So let's hear it.
I almost forgot. I had a little time this morning. So I said, your adventuring party has only been together a few weeks. You've seen your share of action, but today seems peaceful and promising. Walking through a cool morning, tendrils of fog on the soft, needle-covered ground as you make your way through a still, fragrant pine forest. Your rogue thinks she has spotted movement out of the corner of her eye, but no one can detect anything out of the ordinary, just some stunted pine trees that seem somewhat out of place in this otherwise healthy forest. So it is a total surprise when sudden, sharp, piercing pain rips through your legs and neck from needles striking with ferocious velocity.
Oh.
Too late you remember the rumors of needle blights in the vicinity. Roll for initiative.
Nice. There's a reason why I stick around in the dungeons, because those green things can be... Although I have a plant creature that belongs in a dungeon.
Oh, okay.
Couple of them, actually. So yes, we are talking about our creature episode this month is plants.
Yeah.
Inspired by the growth outside that we had mentioned and the greenery, at least here in Middle America, Central Illinois, it is definitely sunny, warm, and things are growing fast.
Growing crazy. Yeah, I have to go out and hack back some things that I planted because I wanted fast growth, and I got that.
But it doesn't stop when you get there.
Need some sort of a control plant growth spell.
Yeah. Well, so I grabbed from the Monster Manual. They had a section where they talked about all the different creature types. And so plants obviously is one of them. And so this is what it says about it. It says vegetable creatures, not ordinary flora. Most are ambulatory and some are carnivorous. The quintessential plants are the shambling mound and the treant. Fungal creatures such as gas spores and the myconid also fall into this category. So they've given away some names of some plants that I bet we'll be talking about. One of them I really have on my list that I want to mention. Where do you want to start on that?
Well, I think what occurred to me, and again, this is no great revelation, but this ties into some of our other episodes where if you have a party that's squeamish about combat and about killing,
oh yeah,
these are nice opponents because they're just plants. You know, I suppose you could have someone that would feel bad, but then you could just change the word to prune and pluck rather than slash, and you know, and a lot of these are plants that were something's been done to them, so they are unnatural.
Right.
So that kind of makes it also a little easier. So these are very, I felt just in general, they're handy to throw in for those sorts of things. They're nice. I think for most of these are lower level. Very few are very difficult to fight.
Yeah, I have one boss.
Yep. So most of these are much better, you know, serve for lower level parties as sort of a just an obstacle on their way.
Yes.
And it kind of highlights the fact that you can't trust, you know, nothing is safe.
That's right. And I think something that was really key to your description as in your intro was when you mentioned the pine trees that seemed a little out of place in this forest, but nonetheless, they're part of the forest. That's usually your identifier, is that something just seems a little out of place. I remember the first time. So the first time I threw monsters at you, way back when, you were walking along a path, and there seemed to be some little bushy things along the side of the road. You know, there aren't any trees or anything in the area you were, just these little shambling, like, viney bushes. And, of course, they became the goblin of the adventure, or the kobold of the adventure, or what we're talking about in the plant world are the twig blights.
They were that rather than awakened shrub?
Yes.
Okay.
They were twig blights. They came jumping out of those shrubs. And when they were all together is what made them look like the shrubs.
Right.
Because they are huddled together.
Yeah. And for low-level parties, they
can be tricky.
They're worrisome. Yeah. And I would say that, I mean, we can just kind of throw awakened shrub into there too.
Sure.
Awakened shrubs are just a little less dangerous. Their damage is 1d4 minus 1.
Okay.
Whereas I think the twig blights are +1. And other than that, they're very, very, very similar.
Yeah.
And I've thrown them at you guys, and I've thrown them at my Taekwondo buddies, and each time they are surprisingly rough. Like, people go down at the early stages if you've got 6 or 7 of these things.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. They usually come in numbers.
Yeah.
You're not fighting a single twig blight.
No.
There's usually 5 or 6, if not more, depending on where you are and what you as the DM have decided how you want to use them. But I was kind of surprised to see that the twig blights aren't the only blights.
Right.
That there are other types of blights. There's the needle blight, which shoots the thorns off of it. And then there are the vine blights, which are kind of the tough ones. Yeah. If I don't have the stat blocks in front of me, but I think those were the kind of tougher ones.
They do a lot more damage.
Yeah.
They're a 1d8 damage. The others are d4, d6.
Okay.
But the needle blights have the ranged attack, so that's what
that adds a new.
Yeah.
And for those players that are squeamish about killing even living things like plants, these are evil.
Yes.
These are not just neutral plants trying to survive. These plants are out there trying to take over forests and corrupt soil and things like that. And so,
They've been twisted by something, yes.
yeah, and the lore goes back to the Gulthias tree, which you guys defeated one of those in the Sunless Citadel. And the Gulthias tree, the lore is escaping me, but it was created from the blood of something. I want to say a vampire, but I don't know that that's right. But nonetheless, there's the Gulthias tree. The Gulthias tree creates these blights with the goal of taking over. Mm-hmm. And if you're not careful, if a village doesn't pay attention, these blights can they can cover your village in a matter of days.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What else do you have?
So I sort of split between ambulatory and non-ambulatory, but also above ground, below ground. So maybe we stick with the above ground ones.
Sure.
This was a nicer thing to research because it's much more limited, I found, than the other sort of species or varieties of monster.
That crinkling, by the way, is my old school paper notes.
Oh. I just forgot to print mine out. That's why I'm working on my phone. So I guess the other things that, Shambling Mound, I think, fits into that general category.
Above ground, ambulatory.
Ambulatory and sort of just mindless evil.
Yes.
Some of the others are a little more complicated than that. So that's probably the next one. That one is something that should strike fear in every mid-level party.
Yeah.
That sees it, because they have a lot of hit points and they're hard to kill, and once they engulf you, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I've never played again. You haven't thrown a Shambling Mound at us, have you?
No, but Chris did.
Chris did.
That might have been the session you were gone.
Oh, with our chaotic session,
yes.
Our chaotic group. Oh, I must have been gone because I don't remember that.
Yeah,
unless it was that. Was it in part of that trip where we were like going to that place, and I'm forgetting the names, but we would have did that thing, and there were different things that we had to achieve. Yeah. So anyway, I don't remember the Shambling Mound, but maybe
it was the spoiler alert if you are looking at Ravnica.
Ravnica,
yeah.
That's it.
So spoiler alert, skip ahead if you don't want to hear about Ravnica. But it was the source. There were 4 shambling mounds beneath a house. The mystery was this house kept moving around.
They were carrying it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I fought one of those. You guys fought some at one point, and then when we took the house, we ended up fighting those.
Yeah, and they're tough.
They were tough.
I had at one point, my character's only solution was he could run faster than they could.
Oh, that's right.
Basically trying to get away, running around the house trying to get help, and yeah.
There's a nursery rhyme in there somewhere. And what was tough about them? That's what I was trying to think.
They have a lot of hit points. They do pretty big damage. They engulf you, and
they have a slam, if I remember right. Yeah.
And they're immune to lightning. And strangely, for a plant, I think they're resistant to fire as well. They are not. You'd think vulnerable. A lot of these are vulnerable, but I guess because it's such a squishy, swampy thing that it's waterlogged anyway.
The thing that I noted was if you shoot it with lightning, that's like healing it.
Yes. Because
that's partially how they're created. It's one of the ways in which they're created outside of Fey magic.
Yeah.
I did write a few things down from them. They're wanderers. Now, ours had a purpose, like a magical evil purpose, but generally they are wanderers, and they destroy anything in their path.
Yeah.
So
kind of like a gelatinous cube, but in the forest.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. So I did a little bit of third party looking around and searching around. And so I searched the Kobold Press Creature Codex, and I also looked through Kaywood Publishing's a few of their books. And so I'm kind of, the crinkling you're hearing is me going back and forth between my pages of notes. So one that kind of fits along with that dangerous ambulatory, Arborcyte.
Okay.
Arborcyte. So Arborcyte. This sounds like an awful and a horrifying things that come across, because the Shambling Mound is just like the vegetation that's come together and created by magic and lightning. This thing is a mound of thorns covered by vines, which also you can see within it the bones of the things that it has destroyed. So you see bleached out bones in its core. You see this like described in the book as a hellish light that illuminates the eye sockets of the many skulls that are sitting inside of this thing. And so they're created from the souls. These are created from the souls of a druid who failed to protect its own woodland. And it becomes exactly what it fought against. So like, however this druid dies, the soul of it becomes this nasty creature, which is exactly what the druid was fighting against.
Oh, wow.
This is kind of a cool piece of it. When it takes 10 or more damage in one attack, it will drop a vine. And that vine, I picture it in my head, becomes like a vine snake. And so that's controlled by the arbor sighty. And so if you do too much damage to it in too many rounds in a row, or like 4 of you in a round do like 15, 25, 30, you now have four things to fight besides just the arbor sighty.
Oh, wow.
So you have to do a little pull back, I guess, to try to just chip away, maybe. I don't know, but it looks like in the book, and it sounds like in description, just a horrifying thing to come across.
Wow.
Especially in a dark forest where you don't maybe know exactly where you are. Mm-hmm. So nice. That was a fun one to come across.
Yeah. What else you got? I'm moving on to higher sentience, like intelligence. So are there any other cool?
Okay. Yeah. So this one might fit into that as far as intelligence goes, but it goes along with kind of the danger of the blights. This one is called Alamite. This is half the size of a halfling. So teeny tiny little guy. And you might recognize that they're around if you fought them before, because you might catch the odor of like wild onions or something.
Okay.
Because
Allium,
that's
Alamite.
Okay, yeah. So that's what it is. It fights with grass blades, sharpened grass blades, and thorn darts. They're onion folk, found in areas of wild onions, leeks, or garlics. They do have fey origins, and they're created with a large amount of pixie dust. Pixie dust gone wrong, I suppose.
They should have some kind of a gas attack.
They do. I didn't write it down, but they do. There's something that they can do with their onion smell to either confuse you or I think it's a poison. Like the twig blights, if you find one of these, you probably have stumbled upon a community of them, and you could potentially be in some serious trouble. Because while they are small and really they don't have, I think they max out like a 16, 24 hit dice or not hit dice, but hit points. So they're not especially tough to fight, or to kill, destroy, but there's going to be a lot of them. Yeah. And they've got that ranged with the thorn darts, and they've got those sharp grass blades. So that's kind of cool. And I got one more before we go on to the more intelligent. It is also another blight found in the Creature Codex from Kobold Press. It's called a Shadow Blight. And this is not like one of those like, it's just a twig blight, let's crack it up. This is a little tougher. These are dark stumps that creep along by the roots, are like legs. Mm-hmm. They're born of vampires and created from the crimson mist that is when a vampire is killed, a crimson mist appears. And so when the mist hides behind trees or something like that in a forest, it poisons these trees, and when they die, the stumps become these shadow blights. Ooh. So they spend their entire lives. This kind of reminds me of the Zorns we talked about. All the Zorns do, and when we talk about elementals, is all they do is they look for things and they eat, and they're really wanting to just get to the elemental plane of the plane of elementals, so that they can just eat and be happy for the rest of their lives. Shadow blights are similar like that. They eternally are searching for the plane of shadows, and they will destroy anything that gets in its way. And if it kills you will know if this is a recent feed when you come across it, because if it has a red bloom or a blossom on it, it just killed something. Because the blood of it creates that flower, that blossoming thing. It's kind of gross to think about. But yeah, if there's like 6 or 7 blossoms on it, I get away. This thing's tough. So anyway, kind of a fun way to bring some horror to a forest campaign. Let's move on to yours.
So I did overlook one other sort of non-intelligent, an assassin vine.
Nice.
It's not, honestly, the name, I think the name is the coolest thing about it. It's essentially just a vine blight, but just a little bit juiced up. It can constrict. It has pretty powerful attacks and that sort of thing. But it's the same, same song, different verse.
Yeah.
It's powered up a little bit. So
When I found that's what I come across when I come across the third party books, is they take these core creatures or concepts and they really like just kind of twist them, juice them up, like you said, and come up with some really cool stuff. I can't wait to. I got more to share, but let's move on to some of the more intelligent, because I got a few of those.
it kind of connected to the onion folk or the vegapygmies.
Yes.
And not much to say about them, but they're humanoid clans. They're made out of plants. They can regenerate sort of like a troll.
Okay.
So plant healing itself sort of thing. They're not particularly tough. I don't think they are meant to necessarily be a monster to fight. They're creatures you interact with.
Oh, okay.
Certainly you could come across an evil band of them or whatever.
Sure.
But for the most part, it's just another type of plant folk. And I think it's the healing that's kind of makes them unique.
Okay.
And another one that sort of is along the line with some of the things you talked about is the wood woad.
Don't know this one.
This is on the surface, it looks sort of like a tree ant, I think.
Okay.
Or acts like that. Tends to be sort of a guardian of the forest, but a little darker. Mm-hmm. So what I found was the ritual that created a wood woad consisted of removing a living person's heart, planting a seed into it, and placing it inside a cavity of a tree. The sacrificed creature's body was buried in the vicinity, and the tree was then bathed with the sacrifice's blood. After 3 days, the wood woad would sprout from the ground nearby, ready to receive its orders, which it would then follow forever until otherwise relieved. So probably going to be a bad creature.
Sounds like it.
I mean, it's by itself, it's probably neutral, but to do that, to create it in the first place, you're probably looking at an evil mage of some sort. So whatever orders it's given, not going to be something average party is probably going to be in line with. It's very stealthy, and it does have the dryad tree stride ability as well.
Oh, that's cool.
So that could be a very fun atmospheric creature.
Yeah.
To add to a forest adventure.
So remind me, so if we're in a forest and it's got that ability, you're fighting it, it could step back into a tree and then turn up on the other side of the party.
Yeah.
Is that how tree? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've used it. One of my characters has the tree stride, but I was just trying to remember. It's been a while since we played that character. So that's cool. That's cool. I've got another tree like creature that kind of fits along with that. I also noticed while doing this research that a lot of these mid-level plant creatures are created as guardians of something, either the evil that created it or to guard some thing in the forest. This next one that I have, also from the Creature Codex, is called the Mandriano, and it is a giant gnarled tree man. But it's very quiet and very precise, and it's cloaked in a cape of darkness. It has a pale face, and that is visible because it's lit by blue flame eyes. So it is a damned fae. It is a perversion of a treant grown in soil that's defiled by a ritual sacrifice. So again, here we go. You have that kind of sacrifice that you just described, and here is the soil has a ritual placed upon it. So what this thing does, again, horrifying, it herds undead. And it wanders its territory and raises undead as it go along, and it tends to these mindless creatures, skeletons, zombies, and whatever.
Oh, wow.
And it will herd them. And these Madrianos, they don't work solo. There's usually 2 or 3 of them that are doing this work. And so if you come across one, you're likely in big trouble, because there's probably an army or, a small bunch of just a miscellaneous of other of undead, along with 1 or 2 more of these Madrianos in the area. So you could be in some big trouble if you came across these. I was like, okay, so that's kind of cool. An evil plant creature that raises the undead. But imagine if you're a warlock and you're an evil warlock and you have like your keep or your castle or whatever that you have is in a forest, you could create a few of these and you have a natural undead army and these awful giant tree creatures just sort of protecting you. I mean, I don't know that they can be charged with that, but if they've got a territory, that's where they'll stay.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's a very creepy Halloween type of a.
Yeah, it is.
You mentioned tree ants, and I did write them down, and from what I can see, they're pretty much just an ant. I think they're listed as chaotic good. They're the independent thinking, intelligent creatures. Very, very, very similar to sort of like hobbits became halflings. Ents have become tree ants.
Tree ants, yeah. All I wrote down about the tree ants is they are created to protect the wild, and so they're protectors.
Yep, that's all I've got for above ground. So anything else you got?
Yeah, I'll stick with that because we're talking about good. It was hard to find a good plant creature, again, because I think most of the time they're created out of evil purposes.
Right, because you're twisting the natural order to create them. So
yeah, and so this one is very simply called the Healing Tree. This is out of the Monsters of Feyland 2 by Kaywood Publishing. So I don't know how exactly this works, and this may be specific to his world of Mir, but there's a mother tree. In a large circle around the mother tree are these other trees called the Healing Trees. They are protectors, but if you, as a party, come across them and you are, obliging and you are, peaceful or you are good, maybe you're there to protect the mother tree as well or to discover something to take evil out. These trees have the ability to heal you with a warm golden light that seems a bit otherworldly. And don't be fooled, though. They are pretty formidable if you do decide that you want to do evil things to this area or around the mother tree, because they can fight, but they have that healing ability. Yeah, I think I'm ready to move to underground.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Yes, and you mentioned some, so starting at the lower level and stationary, there's the Shrieker. These are
some fungi, yeah.
Yeah, some fungi that are, which I guess they're plants. I'm going to put them in there. So they don't attack. They're just they just scream if they see light or movement.
Right.
So they're just a warding system.
Nice to have those around if you were trying to stay hidden.
And the violet fungus, it does move a little bit, but very, very, very slow. And it lashes out with tendrils to deal necrotic damage.
Okay.
They aren't hard to, like violet fungus has an AC of 5. So if you're, if you are a level 2 or 3 fighter, you'll hit them unless you roll in that one. I think they're there just sort of to provide, I don't know what you would say, I guess entertainment or flavor, easy things to kill, but they'll get you if you don't.
Right.
And I suppose there'd be a mass of them, so you could be in trouble if you stumbled into the middle. Yeah.
I think that's what makes a lot of these plants, and fungi definitely fits into it, because in the description of plants in the Monsters Manual, they add fungal creatures. So yeah, these small weak ones, the blights, the shriekers, the violet fungus, it's the numbers that make them potentially dangerous.
And then the only other really low level one that I came across was the gas spore, which is...
Those are dangerous.
Yes. That's kind of again, people that came up with that, it's cool because it's, how do I want to say it? As a DM, if you put these in, you are preying on the normal impulses of a party.
Right.
They look like a beholder. They look scary. Attack it. Just attack it.
Right.
And then of course when you attack them, they explode, and their spores are deadly.
Yep.
Or can be.
Those are great little things for dungeons. I bet they show up lower level in dungeons because it's darker and wetter and okay. And it may give me some ideas right now. Thank you for that. But yeah, I was looking at the gas bar. I was like, 1 hit point. I looked at stat block before I read the description. I was like, they have 1 hit point. So how do you use this? And okay, yep. I see. And they are created, aren't they? Don't they have a background in behold? Like they're created from the carcass of a beholder or something like that.
I didn't see that, but that could be.
Yeah, but nonetheless, they mock it, not mock it. They mimic it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have anything quite that easy. Yeah, mine are a little tougher. So there's a good fungus that it's just like in real life. There's some things that are good for you and some things that are bad for you. And there is a good fungus that is not a gas spore, shrieker, or violet fungus that you probably noted, and that's the myconids.
Yes, I've got them down.
Yeah, and so what I thought was cool about them, and I'll let you talk about what resonated with you, but I just like that these are fungus that they just search enlightenment.
Yes.
And that they exist for a higher understanding.
Mm-hmm. I think yes, this is another one where I don't know if you feel like inserting some emotional distress or guilt or whatever, or want to bring a group kind of back down who are just slaughtering everything. Myconids are sort of interesting to put in their path because they don't, they don't really, they can't do much to hurt you. I think they can punch you, but they've got, what they do is they release spores, but they're not, the spores themselves are not harmful. There's distress spores. If a myconid is attacked, it releases these, and all other myconids within, they said, like 240 feet
will come
immediately know.
Yeah.
Then there's pacifying spores that stun, I think is what it is, but basically they, so they can get away. And then there's rapport spores. And if they release these, then anybody who is in their cloud can talk to anybody, like mentally communicate with anybody else.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's kind of a cool thing. So if you make an ally of these folks, then they offer some pretty nice utilitarian benefits to that.
I like that it mentioned that they will, if you're peaceful, they will welcome you into their community.
Yes.
So I'm thinking, if you're in the middle of a dungeon, you come across a cavern and it's ruled by myconids. Oh, would that be nice if you're if you're gonna come in peacefully, because boy, I'm thinking long rests. In your protected long rest where nobody really has to watch because you get the myconids there to protect you, and they care for you and all that kind of stuff. They might give you information. That's the kind of stuff I see from those. Mm-hmm. They have a really cool picture in the monster manual too.
Yeah,
I found myself just kind of examining the picture as I was, instead of reading at one point. But they had a neat picture. I just find fungi to be sort of creepy and interesting to look at. There's one that has like the shriveled top head.
Well,
anyway,
it leads us back to that image of the demon Zuchtmoy.
Yeah.
Demon lady of fungus.
Yeah.
And whoever drew that was such a perfect, because you glance at her and think it's a pretty young woman, and then you look and you see the wrongness of it.
Yeah. I have 2 more, and then I've got my boss.
Okay.
And are you going to talk about her a little bit, or
no?
Okay. All right. So one that I thought was kind of cool. We're back to blights again. So underground. This is from the Monsters of Feyland, or no, this is from Monsters of the Dungeon by Kwood Publishing. These are called fright blights. So when you're going along the walls or down a corridor of a dungeon, you might notice that it's not a flat wall. There's like shadows or something along there. And as you get a little closer and you start to examine, you see that there are vines on this wall. And about the time that you discover that it's the vines that are casting these shadows, bite. It bites you. It reaches out and snags you. And they're vines that just grow on dungeon walls. and they're created through the negative energy that it finds in the cracks of the walls and the soil. And as written in this, it says, necrotic energy can be hidden in very unexpected places. So I guess you know that there's necrotic energy around if you come across one of these creatures. But they're motionless. When they're motionless, it's indistinguishable from any other tangled set of vines. So you might just see it and not think anything of it and walk by it, and it just reaches out and grabs that last person and snaps and tries to eat it. Another cool one that's from the Monsters of the Dungeon by Kaywood Publishing is one, we've talked to Andrew several times, and we've always appreciated his like cleverness of some of the names.
The wordplay.
So this one, yes, the wordplay. So this one is the MYSS, Miss, and then TREE, tree, the Mist Tree. This is a seamless, hardenless dungeon tree that creates chaos for the party. So I'm envisioning when I walk into a cavern, there's a tree in this cavern, just a dungeon tree growing there. And as you get close to it, it releases spores to confuse the creatures around it. And in fact, some of those spores will even teleport the party away, like members of the party away.
Okay.
And so before long, between the confusing spores and members being teleported away, the party is wandering around, wondering where their companions have disappeared to. This is where the Mist Tree really takes action. Because as they're sort of wandering in ones and twos, it starts snagging them and eating them.
Oh.
So it takes advantage of the confusion and eats the ones that are lost. And so kind of a fun role play there as they walk in, you get close to the tree, because this is something I wish I would have looked at the description a little bit more, is how secretive those spores are. I envision it. It's not very much of a mystery if you know that those spores are coming at you.
Yeah.
So my guess is those spores go out in like secret, and then plop, 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 plop. Everyone gets some sort of an unfortunate sort of reaction. And then as they're wandering around, it grabs them and takes them out. All right. I have a boss. Do you have some more?
I've got one that doesn't fit anywhere else except it is a fungus. This, I think, comes from the Wild Beyond the Witchlight. This is the campestry or campestry. This is, I know there's an image. The image of it looks like a Disney mushroom.
Yes, I think you're right. I think it's from that book.
Red and white dots and all that. What kind of made me chuckle about it, I mean, they did a nice job making them just ridiculous, but in a really fun way. If they hear any sound or music, they will mimic it, but they do it badly. Like they're not good at what it is. So to be out of
like
tune,
singing in the shower,
out of tune, and like words that sound like the words but aren't the words. So,
it's me. It's me.
Bacon carrot biscuits. So that could be a lot of fun to role play if you have a bunch of these around your party.
Yeah.
They headbutt for 1 damage. And they have spores that will slow you down. That's it. So they're harmless, having fun. But
bring interesting moments to your game.
Yes.
Probably some hilarity is my guess.
Yes.
I mean, how entertaining to have the party having a good time with it, only to be headbutted.
Yes.
For 1 damage, and then what are they going to do? Are they going to, are they going to destroy this thing, or are they just going to laugh it off and walk away for 1 hit point's worth of damage? That's cool. I wonder, Wild Beyond the Witchlight.
I'm pretty sure that's where it was.
Because you could also use those as some trickery. You could put those out there to distract the party.
Yeah.
And while we're having fun, something awful comes along that is attracted by the bad singing.
Yes.
And so that would be kind of cool.
Squishes all the campestries and then attacks you.
Yeah. Yeah. See, there you go. All right. Ready for the boss?
Yes.
Okay.
What you got?
So you are in a forest of fae. And you see, the creatures of the fae around you, but then suddenly you realize that you're in a part of the forest where none of those creatures are. And the reason is because if you were to speak to them, they would tell you, "Oh, that part of the forest is cursed, we stay away. And the reason they stay away is because, well, again, clever name, fun wordplay, because in that part of the forest is the root of all evil. This root of all evil is it's money. Maybe inside of it, I don't know.
Sound dangerous.
It is. So fun. It is think of like a giant, the way I envision it is there's a giant mud ball, like the size of a van or something like that has a huge toothy mouth. But it also has 6 tendrils that come off of it. And it tunnels under the forest, finds a cavern, and then that is where it lives. And it pokes its tendrils out of the top of the forest, and it just waits for things to come, and it snatches them and it pulls them down. Or maybe people get really curious and they find these tunnels and they start searching for it. That would be awful to come across one of these underground. So it is one of the most powerful creatures in the land of Fae. It has 200 some hit points. I mean, the attacks it does are pretty massive. It is a siege monster, which is, I don't know why I've never noticed this before. This is a thing that's a lot of monsters have that are large and like this, like a Tarrasque is a siege monster. So that means that when it attacks something like a wall or a construct of some sort, it does double damage.
Oh,
that's such an old school term, double damage. It does twice damage to those structures.
Okay.
It does tunnel to its lair and create that lair in there. The Fae consider, as I mentioned, the territory of the root of all evil to be cursed. And it is omnivorous. Did I say that right? Omnivorous. So it will eat either creatures or a large assortment of plants. So it can survive quite a while. The Fae abandoned, so there may not be a lot of
it eats everything.
Meat, but it'll eat plants and stuff until some meat comes walking along. This just sounds like a really cool battle.
Yeah.
If you're working through like a forest of Fae or something like that, I can see an adventure worked all the way around it where you come to this forest and the Fae are like, this cursed area, we just, people go into that area and they disappear. Can you adventurers go see what is causing that curse? And you might be going in thinking you're going to find a hag or some sort of dark magic or something like that, and boom, you're encountering this giant ball of a mouthy ball that has these tendrils, and it could be a pretty awful and dangerous type of situation. So, yeah, that's from Monsters of the Faeland 2 by Kaywood Publishing, The Root of All Evil. Okay.
So it sounds like, say, Andrew Kaywood did a nice job fleshing out, which is what is sort of a sparse area of Monster Manual, really.
Yeah. He has a lot of cool. There's several that I didn't bring into this conversation from those 2 books, Monsters of the Dungeon and Monsters of Faeland 2.
Yeah. So if you're looking to do a plant-based vegan adventure,
yes, ooh,
then it might be worth looking up the Kaywood books.
Yep, absolutely. And really, for that matter, the Creature Codex is super cool too. So, Well, awesome. Hey, if you liked this episode of Creatures, be sure to go back in our the 2024 catalog of shows with season 3, I believe is what it's titled. So, for example, we talked about elementals on episode 16, and we've talked about a few other monster creatures. Yep. Giants.
We got giants and Fae, and we had them all had something to do with the month.
With the time of the year. So
we'll have to...
so go back and check those out if you enjoyed this show. We are glad you joined us for this conversation of plants and fungi. If you've got comments, we talked about social media at the very beginning, but we do have an email account, teachersinthedungeon@gmail.com. So send us any comments there. If you have created a plant-based adventure, we'd love to hear about that. And what was your big boss? Was it a root of all evil or something else? So share those stories with us. We'll share them here on the air. And I think with that, I'm Tom Gross with Dan Ream, and keep rolling those 20s.
But look out for spores.
Yes, watch out for the spores.